For generations, Superman has been celebrated as a paragon of virtue, a guardian angel from the stars, cloaked in red and blue. But what if that image is more myth than truth? What if the Man of Steel, despite his noble intentions, has inadvertently become one of humanity's most dangerous dependencies? Today, we challenge the status quo and ask the unthinkable. Has Superman done more harm than good? Superman has stood as a symbol of hope for generations, the ultimate protector, the first and greatest superhero. But beneath the cape and iconic crest lies a complicated legacy, one of unchecked power, blurred moral lines, and unintended consequences that ripple across worlds. This isn't an attempt to villainize the Man of Steel, but rather an invitation to explore a truth many refuse to question. What if Superman, despite his noblest intentions, has caused more harm than good? Let's take a hard look at the myth, the man, and the impact of Earth's most powerful alien, the Savior Complex. When good intentions go galactic, Superman is often depicted as a modern-day messiah, a celestial being who soars from the skies to fix what humanity cannot. But there's a dangerous paradox at play here. When a figure like Superman steps in to solve every problem, what happens to our own responsibility? In many continuities, including the mainline DC universe, Superman's influence on global affairs is so pervasive that the United Nations, heads of state, and even entire superhero coalitions hesitate to act without first considering his stance. In The Dark Knight Returns, a militarized Superman becomes an extension of U.S. authority, blurring the lines between democratic process and extraterrestrial intervention. Similarly, in Justice League Unlimited, the UN creates Cadmus, a covert response team, purely out of fear that Superman may one day impose his will unchecked. This isn't trust, it's reliance forged from fear. And reliance is precisely the problem. Superman's persistent interventions have created a world in which both heroes and institutions become increasingly passive. His presence breeds dependency, not resilience. When Superman is around, he becomes the ultimate backstop, the figure everyone waits for before taking action. But when he's absent, the vacuum he leaves behind is paralyzing. Kingdom Come by Mark Waid and Alex Ross explores this theme masterfully. In this dystopian future, Superman retires in disillusionment, stepping away from humanity. The result? Chaos. The next generation of heroes becomes reckless, violent, and morally unmoored. When Superman finally returns, it's not as a savior, but as a corrective, a symbol of how fragile the world becomes when it pins all its hope on one man. His reemergence doesn't fix things. It forces a reckoning with just how broken things were in his absence. Kingdom Come doesn't celebrate Superman's return. It critiques the world's failure to build something sustainable in his absence, a mirror to our modern tendency to look for messiahs rather than structural solutions. This raises deeper questions. Philosophically, what does it mean when one being decides what constitutes a crisis worth solving? Superman can't be everywhere, nor should he be. But that doesn't stop the myth of his omnipresence from taking root. And that myth becomes dangerous. It leads people to believe someone will save them even when he can't. Or worse, it normalizes that certain people, places, or causes simply aren't deemed urgent enough to earn Superman's attention. In Superman, Peace on Earth, Clark Kent attempts to eradicate world hunger in a single day. He bypasses governments, avoids diplomatic protocol, and delivers food directly to famine-stricken regions. The gesture, while heartfelt, collapses under its own weight. Local leaders bristle, geopolitical tensions flare, aid gets rejected, even destroyed, and all because Superman assumes that good intentions can override complexity. This is the essence of the savior complex, the belief that one's moral compass is universally applicable, even when it's not. There's a cold irony in Superman's acts of mercy becoming the seeds of instability. Because no matter how powerful he is, his actions reverberate through systems far more delicate than he realizes. He may be bulletproof, but the societies he tries to save are not. The deeper truth is that Superman's interventions, however noble, often rob humanity of growth. He doesn't build capacity, he supplants it. Systems don't get stronger under Superman's watch, they become stagnant, waiting for him to act. It's not salvation, it's sedation. The most dangerous part, no one questions it. Why would they? After all, it's Superman. Collateral damage. The cost of being super. Superman is often seen saving cities from falling meteors, halting alien invasions, or battling world-ending threats. But when gods wage war in human spaces, who cleans up the wreckage? The truth is, for every skyscraper he saves, another gets leveled in the chaos. And for every innocent life spared, how many lives are disrupted, displaced, or outright destroyed by the fallout? This isn't an abstract criticism. It's canon. In Man of Steel, 2013, Superman's battle with General Zod decimates Metropolis. Buildings collapse, debris rains down, and thousands perish in the name of salvation. It's an uncomfortable mirror to real-world events. The idea that overwhelming power, even when wielded in the name of good, often causes irreparable harm. Bruce Wayne's anger in Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, is rooted in this very reality. Watching his employees die and his company tower fall during Superman's battle in Metropolis makes him question the legitimacy of Superman's unchecked power. It's not just that Superman was present. It's that he acted without oversight, without coordination, and with devastating consequences. To Bruce, and many others, Superman isn't a hero. He's a force of nature. Even in comics, the wake left behind by Superman's actions is rarely clean. Entire storylines like Grounded and For Tomorrow delve deep into the moral dissonance created by Superman's existence. In Grounded, Superman attempts a symbolic walk across America to reconnect with ordinary citizens, only to confront uncomfortable truths. His presence doesn't always uplift. In many towns, he is met with suspicion, fear, or even resentment. Instead of being embraced as a savior, he's viewed as a god too detached from human frailty. He learns that people don't see him as a neighbor, but as a towering standard of perfection that makes them feel inadequate. In For Tomorrow, Superman grapples with the aftermath of a global catastrophe known as the Vanishing, where 1 million people, including Lois Lane, mysteriously disappear without a trace. As Superman investigates, we witness a profound transformation in his character. He retreats into introspection, questioning not only his methods but his very purpose. Did he fail those people by not acting sooner? Was his trust in others misplaced, or was his own belief in his infallibility the root of the problem? The storyline reveals the immense psychological toll of Superman's role. No longer just a symbol of hope, he becomes a man haunted by grief, guilt, and isolation. He's seen floating in solitude in his fortress of solitude, building a holographic church, seeking answers not from gods, but from ghosts. His conversations with Father Leone expose the fragility behind the icon, a Superman who envies mortality, who craves connection, and who struggles to reconcile his infinite power with the finite outcomes of his choices. What For Tomorrow powerfully illustrates is the cost of placing the weight of the world on one man's shoulders. Superman isn't just contending with villains or natural disasters. He's wrestling with the idea that maybe he can't and shouldn't be everything to everyone. The line between savior and tyrant blurs when one man holds the expectation of omniscience. This version of Superman doesn't shatter planets. He shatters under pressure. These narratives force a critical question. Can someone with absolute power truly exist among humans without distorting the fabric of society? Superman's mere presence challenges the legitimacy of human institutions. When the United Nations hesitates to act, is it because of diplomacy, or because they assume Superman will intervene? In Kingdom Come, we witness a dystopian future where the emergence of violent new metahumans forces Superman out of retirement. But even his return isn't universally welcomed. Some view him as the cause of the chaos, not its solution. These philosophical tensions suggest that Superman, no matter how noble, unintentionally becomes a destabilizing force simply by existing. There's a deeper point here. Superman exists in a world that is, by design, not built for him. He is the ultimate exception in a world of fragile norms. So every time he acts, he destabilizes. Governments flinch, armies react, villains escalate. And in that escalation, it is civilians who suffer the most. Collateral damage isn't a side effect. It's baked into the equation. What's worse is the normalization of this damage. Within the DC universe, the rebuilding of cities like Metropolis or Coast City is treated like a background event, almost an afterthought. Insurance companies, emergency responders, city planners, they're all portrayed as somehow coping with the scale of devastation that comes with Superman's existence. But, in reality, infrastructure doesn't regenerate overnight. Trauma doesn't disappear, and lives lost are not just statistics. The consequence of this normalization is apathy. When destruction becomes a spectacle, we stop seeing its human cost. When Superman lifts a battleship out of the sea, we cheer. But when the shockwave of his sonic boom collapses a neighborhood, we look away. This isn't a critique of his intentions. It's a reckoning with his outcomes. Superman may want to save the world, but too often, he saves it like a sledgehammer performing surgery. The alien among us, trust issues. At first glance, Superman's origin as an alien may seem like a footnote, a sci-fi flourish in an otherwise heroic myth. But his Kryptonian identity is more than just a backdrop. It is the source of deep-rooted distrust, global anxiety, and a philosophical rift that has done more to divide than to unite. Let's be honest. How would the world react if an indestructible being from another planet decided to live among us in secret, shaping the course of history while pretending to be just another guy in glasses? Superman may act with compassion, but his very existence is a cosmic imbalance. He's not just another hero. He's a walking nuclear deterrent with no oversight, no origin within our world, and no expiration date. That's not comforting. That's terrifying. Superman doesn't just operate outside of human systems. He renders them obsolete. The United Nations, national militaries, peacekeeping organizations, all become redundant the moment he decides to act. And that's the danger. The fact that he chooses when to act. There is no policy, no vote, no consensus, just one man's will. This isn't a hypothetical fear. In Batman vs. Superman, we see this anxiety manifested as public hearings question whether Superman's interventions abroad, like in Nairobi, actually made things worse. The U.S. government is left scrambling to explain a massacre that took place in the wake of his appearance. And it's not the last time Superman's presence turns volatile situations into tragedies. Even in comics, Superman's alien nature creates ripple effects that destabilize the world. In Lex Luthor, Man of Steel, Lex argues that Superman's very presence halts human progress. Why try to solve famine, disease, or climate change when a god can swoop in and fix things? Superman doesn't just save people, he stifles us. He erodes the drive for collective action and replaces it with learned helplessness. Worse still, Superman invites escalation. Villains like General Zod, Doomsday, and Brainiac don't target Earth at random. They come because Superman is here. His presence paints a target on the planet, drawing intergalactic threats we never would have faced otherwise. Without Superman, would Doomsday have rampaged across Metropolis? Would Darkseid even care about Earth? And when those battles inevitably come, it is humanity that pays the price. The people Superman claims to protect are constantly caught in the crossfire of enemies they never asked for. Enemies who came not for us, but for him. This issue of alienation is not just literal, it's psychological. In Grounded, Superman tries to walk across America to reconnect with humanity, only to be met with fear, resentment, even hatred. People don't want a messiah from space. They want agency. They want control over their destinies. And Superman, however well-meaning, takes that away. Perhaps the most damning example of Superman's volatility lies in the alternate reality of injustice. After the Joker tricks Superman into killing Lois Lane and their unborn child, Superman doesn't just mourn, he snaps. He murders the Joker in cold blood and launches a brutal regime to enforce peace on Earth, stripping nations of their sovereignty, dismantling opposition, and transforming into a tyrant. It's a chilling reminder. Superman's moral compass isn't unbreakable. It's conditional. If his pain can eclipse his principles, then we're not looking at a savior. We're living under a time bomb disguised as hope. Superman may see himself as one of us, but in every meaningful way, he isn't. And that gap, that difference, is more than symbolic. It's a chasm that destabilizes institutions, fuels global paranoia, and ensures that as long as Superman is among us, humanity will never truly be free from fear. Because when your greatest protector is also your greatest potential threat, peace doesn't come from trust. It comes from holding your breath. The villain magnet, a beacon for destruction. When Superman crash-landed on Earth, he didn't just bring hope, he brought a cosmic spotlight, one that's turned our planet into a recurring battlefield for godlike beings, all drawn here because of him. Earth was once just a small, blue dot in the cosmos. Now it's ground zero for interstellar warfare, all because it's home to Kal-El. Let's put this into perspective. Before Superman, Earth was relatively off the radar of galactic superpowers. Sure, we had our share of wars and crises, but nothing on the scale of what arrived in Superman's wake. General Zod, Brainiac, Darkseid, these aren't just dangerous adversaries. They are apocalyptic-level threats that dwarf anything humanity would have naturally encountered. And why are they here? Simple. Because of Superman. Take General Zod. His mission wasn't world domination in the traditional sense. It was re-terraforming Earth into a new Krypton. Without Superman, Earth would never have even appeared on Zod's radar. But Kal-El's beacon pulled Zod from the shadows of space, leading to a catastrophic showdown in Man of Steel that leveled entire blocks of Metropolis and claimed thousands of lives. This wasn't collateral damage from a rescue gone wrong. It was a war Earth inherited because of Superman's very existence. Then there's Brainiac, a collector of worlds, a destroyer of civilizations. Brainiac wouldn't have noticed our primitive little rock if not for the Kryptonian anomaly living here. His interest in Earth isn't born out of curiosity. It's calculated obsession, sparked by Kal-El. Brainiac doesn't collect randomness, he collects significance, and Superman unfortunately makes us significant, or Darkseid, the ultimate cosmic tyrant. The ruler of Apocalypse has designs on universal conquest, yes, but it's Superman who constantly brings Earth into his warpath. In countless storylines, from Final Crisis to Justice League, War, Darkseid's focus on Earth intensifies not because of its resources or strategic value, but because of Kal-El. He's not attacking a planet. He's confronting a rival. Earth is the unfortunate middle ground in their power struggle. And its people? Mere collateral. And let's not forget Doomsday. Created as the ultimate weapon, Doomsday exists purely to destroy Superman. And destroy he did. The death of Superman arc shows us that while Superman eventually stops the creature, it's not before Doomsday rips through cities, topples buildings, and leaves mass destruction in his wake. The world mourns Superman's loss, but how many mourn the nameless thousands who perished in his defense? This isn't just fiction. This is a recurring theme. Superman's presence attracts higher-order threats that scale to his power. The stakes get higher, the explosions bigger, the damage more catastrophic, because Superman sets the bar. Every villain becomes an arms race to match or exceed his capabilities. Without him, most of these beings would likely have passed us by. Even earthbound villains escalate. Lex Luthor, for all his villainy, wasn't always a megalomaniacal threat. But Superman's arrival triggered something primal: envy, fear, and obsession. Luthor, one of Earth's greatest minds, redirected his genius not toward solving humanity's challenges, but toward dismantling Superman. His vendetta becomes an all-consuming crusade. And let's be real, no Lex Luthor means no Injustice League, no global-scale supervillain tech, no government destabilizations engineered out of spite. In trying to counter Superman, Luthor inadvertently drags the world deeper into danger. Superman isn't just the flame, he's the lighthouse, and the brighter he burns, the more monsters come crawling out of the dark to challenge him. In doing so, they challenge us and leave the wreckage for humanity to clean up. Here's the harsh truth. Superman's victories are often Pyrrhic. The villains may be defeated, but the cities are in ruins, the economy's shattered, the trauma embedded deep. People may be saved, but their homes are gone, their loved ones buried, their lives forever altered. And all of this could have been avoided if he'd never arrived. Superman doesn't make Earth safer. He makes it a proving ground, a tournament bracket for godlike destruction. And that's not a symbol of hope. That's a cosmic bullseye, painted in red and blue. Stifling heroism, the shadow that swallows all. Superman's presence doesn't just warp global politics or draw in world-ending threats. It also casts a suffocating shadow over every other hero on Earth. His image looms so large, his powers so absolute, that any attempt by others to rise becomes, by default, a comparison. And when the bar is set at near omnipotent alien who can do no wrong, what space is left for mere mortals to stand tall? For all the admiration Superman receives, his dominance in the superhero landscape has created a dangerous dynamic, one where others are either eclipsed, undermined, or discredited. Batman, for example, is often seen as paranoid or even antagonistic simply for questioning Superman's unchecked power. But what Batman represents isn't paranoia. It's oversight, accountability. Yet, in many narratives, his caution is painted as mistrust, his preparation as hostility. Why? Because Superman's moral authority is treated as infallible. Anyone who challenges him, even with legitimate cause, is cast as the villain in the public eye. Even heroes like Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and The Flash often find themselves sidelined in Superman's presence. Their powers are impressive, their intentions noble, but none can match his scale. And in a world where gods walk among mortals, being impressive isn't enough. It's easy to forget that these are heroes in their own right. Warriors, kings, and legends. But when Superman is in the room, everyone else becomes the backup plan. This stifling dynamic isn't just about power levels, it's cultural. Superman is often framed as the ideal, the gold standard against which all heroism is measured. But that ideal is alien, both literally and philosophically. Superman was raised human, but he was never bound by human limits. He doesn't know what it means to truly struggle, to bleed, to fail, to lose, and have no deus ex machina moment of salvation. His version of heroism is tinted with a kind of divine detachment that, while inspirational, is also alienating. Other heroes, especially street-level ones like Green Arrow or Black Canary, operate in messy, morally gray environments where decisions carry real consequences. They don't have the luxury of being everywhere at once or solving problems by flying through walls. Their victories come through compromise, grit, and sacrifice. But how do you inspire trust or admiration when Superman is out there stopping earthquakes with his bare hands? The result is a kind of heroism monopoly. Superman doesn't just help, he dominates. And domination, even when well-intentioned, can be oppressive. It tells the world, if you can't do it like him, why bother at all? It breeds resignation instead of resilience. It turns promising young heroes into sidekicks, and it fosters a culture of dependency rather than empowerment. The Young Justice series explores this tension beautifully. Superboy, a clone of Superman, struggles not just with identity, but with the impossible burden of living up to Superman's image. He is constantly reminded, subtly or overtly, that he is a lesser version. That psychological toll isn't unique to him. It echoes through every hero who enters the scene and is asked, directly or not, "Are you like Superman?" Worse still, Superman's moral rigidity often bleeds into the broader narrative of what heroism should look like. Heroes who take tougher stances, like the Punisher or Red Hood, are often vilified not for their actions, but for failing to live up to Superman's ideals. But not every situation is solvable with heat vision and a speech about hope. Sometimes, the world requires difficult choices, and heroes brave enough to make them. By existing as an unattainable moral and physical standard, Superman warps the trajectory of heroic growth. He doesn't nurture it, he overshadows it. The Justice League becomes less a fellowship of equals and more a kingdom with one quiet king, robed in red and blue. So while Superman may not intend to suppress other heroes, the consequence of his mythic status is clear. A world where true heroism is measured not by courage or conviction, but by proximity to an impossible ideal. And that's not inspiration. That's erasure. Alternate realities, when Supes breaks bad. For decades, Superman has been upheld as the unwavering paragon of virtue, the incorruptible protector, the North Star of moral clarity. But what happens when that compass falters? What if the man of tomorrow takes a different path? Not because he's evil, but because his ideals, taken to their logical extreme, become dangerous. Alternate realities in DC's vast multiverse have explored this unsettling question with sobering clarity. And more often than not, the result is chilling. Superman doesn't just fall, he takes the world down with him. Nowhere is this more apparent than in the Injustice universe. After the Joker tricks Superman into killing Lois Lane, his wife, unborn child, and the symbolic anchor to his humanity, something inside him shatters. He murders the Joker in cold blood and begins a descent into authoritarianism. No longer content with reacting to crime, Superman takes it upon himself to eradicate it, enforcing peace through fear and absolute control. What begins as grief-fueled vengeance morphs into a totalitarian regime. Superman dissolves governments, silences dissent, and establishes a global surveillance state. He imprisons or executes anyone who opposes him, including fellow heroes. And here's the truly terrifying part. His justification sounds noble. He's doing it for peace. He's protecting people. The same motivations that once made him a savior now make him a tyrant. But injustice isn't an outlier. In Justice Lords, a storyline from the Justice League animated series, a similar transformation occurs. After Lex Luthor kills the Flash, Superman crosses a line, executing Luthor and assuming dictatorial control over Earth alongside a corrupted League. Their world is orderly, crime-free, and utterly devoid of freedom. Again, it's Superman's grief that catalyzes the shift. But the infrastructure for tyranny was always there: immense power, moral certainty, and no one to stop him. Even in Red Son, where Superman is raised in the Soviet Union instead of Kansas, his commitment to justice leads to dystopia. He uses surveillance, propaganda, and fear to maintain control, not because he's cruel, but because he believes he knows best. The result is a sanitized world with no crime, no dissent, and no liberty. And once again, it's Batman, the very embodiment of resistance and skepticism, who rises to challenge him. These stories aren't just dark fantasies. They're warnings. They strip away the comforting what of Superman and force us to confront the what if. What if his ideals were inflexible? What if his pain overrode his principles? What if he decided that he alone knows what's right? These realities aren't so far removed from our own. Because even in mainstream continuity, we've seen glimpses of Superman's capacity for destruction. In The Dark Knight Returns, he becomes a government pawn, blindly following orders and clashing violently with Batman, who represents personal agency and rebellion. In Kingdom Come, Superman withdraws from humanity after being betrayed by public opinion, only to return with a more hardened, militaristic worldview. These aren't villains with mustaches to twirl. These are Superman variants whose ideals calcified into dogma, who believed so deeply in their righteousness that they couldn't see when they became the very threat they once fought. And here's the scariest part. Every one of these versions started as our Superman. Compassionate, idealistic, hopeful. They didn't turn because they were evil. They turned because they were human, or trying to be. These cautionary tales reveal the razor's edge Superman walks every day. When you wield that much power, the line between protection and control, between justice and domination, becomes paper thin. All it takes is one moment of loss, one moment of righteous anger, one moment of, I know better, and the world we thought was safe becomes one step away from a dictatorship. So when we ask whether Superman has done more harm than good, we can't ignore these alternate realities. Because they aren't just what-ifs, they're blueprints of what could be, if we ever let power go unquestioned. Even the best of us, especially the best, must be held accountable. Or one day, we may wake up and realize our hero has become our jailer. Superman is not evil. He's not malicious. He's not even reckless by default. But that doesn't mean he's immune to critique. In fact, his very nature demands it. He is power without equal, authority without oversight, morality without consequence. And while that's inspiring, it's also terrifying. By questioning Superman, we're not trying to tear him down. We're trying to hold him and ourselves accountable. To understand that power, even when draped in hope, can cast long shadows. We must challenge myths, deconstruct idols, not to destroy them, but to reveal the truths within. Because only then can we truly decide, has Superman saved us? Or have we just been lucky so far?